In the warm amber glow of the cozy cafe, Robert sat across from Lisa, his fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on the wooden table. The murmur of conversations and the clinking of glasses filled the air, but Robert's attention was divided. His eyes darted to his phone, lying face up beside his coffee cup. Lisa, elegantly dressed and poised, sipped her wine and smiled, attempting to engage him in light conversation. "So, Robert, what do you do for fun?" she asked, her voice smooth but edged with curiosity. Robert forced a smile, his mind clearly elsewhere. "Oh, the usual. Reading, some hiking when I get the chance." Just then, his phone buzzed. Robert's face softened instantly as he saw the caller ID. "I'm sorry, I have to take this," he said, his voice a mixture of apology and urgency. He stood up, walking a few steps away from the table. "Hey, sweetie," he whispered into the phone, his tone tender and comforting. "I know, but I'll be home in just a little bit, I promise. Yes, you can stay up and wait for me to read you a bedtime story. Love you too, Emma." Lisa's eyes narrowed as she watched him, a frown forming on her face. When Robert returned, her demeanor had shifted. "Is everything all right?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Yeah, it's fine," Robert said, settling back into his seat. "That was my daughter, Emma. She's 7. She wanted to know if she could stay up until I got home." Lisa leaned back, crossing her arms. "You have a kid?" Robert nodded, a proud but weary smile on his lips. "Yes, Emma. She's my world." Lisa's expression hardened. "I can't believe you didn't tell me you had a kid." Robert's smile faded. "I wasn't hiding it. I was going to tell you. I just didn't get the chance yet." Lisa shook her head, her eyes flashing with anger. "That's something you tell someone before a date. I thought I was meeting someone who could focus on me, not someone with a kid at home." Robert's shoulders slumped. "I'm sorry, Lisa. I didn't mean to mislead you." Lisa stood up abruptly, grabbing her purse. "This isn't going to work. I need someone who can put me first." She turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply on the floor. Robert watched her leave, feeling the weight of her departure settle heavily on his shoulders. He sat back down, his eyes lingering on the empty chair across from him. The cafe's warmth felt hollow now, the buzz of conversations distant and muted. He sighed deeply, picking up his phone again. "Hey, Emma," he said softly. "Yeah, it didn't go well. But I'll be home soon. Get your favorite book ready, okay? Daddy will be there in a bit to read you a story." As he hung up, Robert stared at the phone in his hand. He finished his coffee in silence, the taste bitter now, and stood to leave. The world outside the cafe seemed colder as he stepped into the night, but the thought of Emma waiting for him at home gave him a small measure of comfort. He walked slowly, his thoughts heavy. This wasn't the first time his role as a single father had complicated his attempts at finding companionship. The first light of dawn filtered through the blinds of David's small but cozy apartment in Chicago. The faint hum of the city waking up played as a backdrop to the quiet, domestic scene unfolding in the kitchen. The air was filled with the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling bacon. David stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced ease. His mind was a whirl of thoughts about the day ahead, but his focus was on the present moment. A little voice from behind him pulled him back to reality. "Dad, can I have extra syrup today?" Emma asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She was perched on a stool, her chin resting on her hands as she watched her father with rapt attention. David turned, smiling at his daughter. "Extra syrup, huh? You must have some big plans for today." Emma nodded vigorously, her ponytail bobbing. We're having show and tell, and I want to bring Mr. Whiskers. Miss Thompson said pets are okay as long as they stay in their cages." David chuckled, pouring a generous amount of syrup over Emma's stack of pancakes. "Mr. Whiskers, huh? I bet he'll be the star of the show." Emma giggled, her laughter filling the room and making the small apartment feel even warmer. The walls were adorned with her drawings, vibrant crayon masterpieces that spoke of a world seen through innocent eyes. They ate breakfast together, Emma chattering about her plans and the latest adventures of her favorite cartoon characters. David listened, occasionally interjecting with a question or a comment, but mostly just enjoying the sound of her voice. It was a soothing routine, a moment of peace before the day's chaos began. After breakfast, David helped Emma with her homework. She was a bright student, her curiosity and eagerness to learn evident in the way she tackled each math problem and spelling word. David guided her patiently, offering hints and encouragement rather than answers. "Dad, do you think I'll ever be as smart as you?" Emma asked suddenly, looking up from her workbook. David smiled, ruffling her hair. "You're already smarter than me, kiddo, and you're going to get even smarter. Just keep being curious and asking questions." Emma beamed, returning to her homework with renewed determination. When they finished, David glanced at the clock. It was time to get ready for work. "All right, kiddo, grab your backpack. We've got to get moving," he said, standing up and stretching. Emma hopped off her stool, grabbing her pink backpack from the hook by the door. David grabbed his coat and briefcase, checking to make sure he had everything he needed for the day. They left the apartment together, stepping out into the brisk morning air. David dropped Emma off at school, giving her a quick hug and reminding her to be good. He watched her run inside, her ponytail swinging, before turning to head to work. David's office was a stark contrast to the warmth of his home. The sterile, fluorescent-lit environment buzzed with the sound of ringing phones and clacking keyboards. He settled into his cubicle, greeting his colleagues with a nod. During a coffee break, a few of David's colleagues gathered in the break room, chatting about their weekend plans. The conversation was light-hearted, filled with mentions of upcoming parties, dates, and leisurely pursuits. "Hey, David, got any exciting plans for the weekend?" one of them asked, a hint of teasing in his voice. David shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "Just the usual. Spending time with Emma, maybe a trip to the park if the weather's nice." His colleagues exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of sympathy and admiration. They knew the sacrifices David made, the way he balanced his responsibilities as a single father with the demands of his job. As the day wore on, David's mind occasionally drifted back to Emma. He pictured her in her classroom, sharing Mr. Whiskers with her classmates, her face alight with joy. The thought brought a sense of calm and purpose, grounding him in the knowledge that everything he did was for her. By the time the workday ended, David was eager to return home. He picked Emma up from school, her excited chatter filling the car as she recounted her day. They spent the evening together, cooking dinner, playing games, and finally, reading a bedtime story. As Emma drifted off to sleep, David sat by her bed, watching her peaceful expression. With a final kiss on Emma's forehead, he turned off the light and quietly left the room, ready to face another day. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the neighborhood park, its golden light filtering through the leaves of the old oak trees. The park was a small oasis in the heart of Chicago, a place where the noise of the city seemed to fade into the background. David and Emma were a familiar sight here, their laughter and playful banter adding to the park's serene ambience. "Dad, throw it higher this time," Emma called out, her voice carrying a mix of excitement and determination. David grinned, winding up his arm. "All right, but you better be ready to catch it." He threw the frisbee with a gentle flick of his wrist, watching it soar through the air. Emma ran after it, her ponytail flying, and caught it with a triumphant cheer. David's heart swelled with pride as he watched his daughter's joy. "Nice catch," a voice called from behind them. David turned to see Sarah, a single mother who lived a few blocks away, approaching with a friendly smile. She held a soccer ball under one arm, her son trailing behind her. "Hey, Sarah," David greeted, waving. "Out for some soccer practice?" "Yeah, Jimmy's begging me to bring him out here," Sarah replied, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "Mind if we join you for a bit?" "Not at all," David said, stepping aside to give them space. Emma ran up, holding the frisbee. "Hi, Miss Sarah. Want to play with us?" Sarah laughed, setting the soccer ball down. "Sure, why not? But you'll have to show me how it's done." Emma's eyes lit up. "I can do that. Watch, I'll teach you." As Emma demonstrated her frisbee skills to Sarah, David watched with a sense of quiet appreciation. Sarah was good with kids, patient and encouraging. She caught on quickly, her laughter mingling with Emma's as they tossed the frisbee back and forth. "You've got quite an arm," Sarah said to Emma, catching the frisbee with a graceful twist. "Have you been practicing a lot?" Emma nodded vigorously. "Dad and I play here all the time. He taught me everything." Sarah glanced at David, her smile softening. "You're lucky to have such a great dad." David felt a flush of warmth at her words but waved it off. "Emma's the one with the talent. I'm just here to keep up with her." Sarah's son, Jimmy, joined in, and soon they were all playing together, the park echoing with their laughter. It was nice to have another adult to talk to, someone who understood the challenges of single parenthood. As the game wound down, they all gathered on a bench to catch their breath. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the park in hues of orange and pink. "Thanks for letting us join you," Sarah said, glancing at David. "It's been a while since I've seen Jimmy this happy." David nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's good for the kids to have some fun. And for us too, I guess." Sarah laughed softly. "Yeah, it is. Sometimes I forget to take a break and just enjoy the moment." Emma, still brimming with energy, tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Can you come play with us again, Miss Sarah? It was so much fun." Sarah smiled warmly at Emma. "I'd love to, sweetie, anytime you want." David watched the exchange, feeling a twinge of something he couldn't quite identify. He appreciated Sarah's kindness and her willingness to join their little games, but his mind was focused on Emma, as always. He didn't notice the way Sarah's eyes lingered on him or the subtle hints in her compliments. "All right, kiddo," David said, standing up and stretching. "We should head home and get dinner started." Emma pouted for a moment but then brightened. "Can we have spaghetti tonight?" "Spaghetti it is," David agreed, ruffling her hair. As they gathered their things, Sarah stood up as well. "Need any help carrying stuff?" "We've got it, but thanks," David replied, smiling. Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Well, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask. We're neighbors after all." "Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it," David said, his voice sincere. They parted ways, Emma chattering excitedly about the day's fun as they walked home. David listened, his heart full, grateful for the simple joys that made up their life. The upscale shoe store in downtown Chicago was a hive of activity, its sleek modern design filled with bustling customers and the soft hum of business. Lisa strolled through the aisles, her eyes scanning the rows of high-end footwear. Beside her, Eric, her current date, checked his phone incessantly, barely acknowledging her presence. "Look at these," Lisa said, picking up a pair of stylish heels. "Aren't they gorgeous?" Eric glanced up briefly. Yeah, sure, he muttered, his attention quickly returning to his phone. Lisa sighed, trying to hide her frustration. This wasn't the first time Eric had seemed indifferent. They had planned this shopping trip together, but he acted like he'd rather be anywhere else. A commotion near the register caught Lisa's attention. A young man dressed in casual attire was being served by a snobbish sales clerk who barely hid her disdain. "I'm sorry, sir, but these shoes are quite expensive," the clerk said, her tone dripping with condescension. "Perhaps something from our clearance section?" The young man smiled calmly. "Actually, I'd like to try them on," he said, handing over a black card. The clerk's eyes widened. "Of course, sir. Right away." Lisa watched the scene unfold, feeling a pang of recognition. She had judged David similarly, dismissing him because he had a child. Her thoughts were interrupted by Eric's voice. "Let's go," he said abruptly, his tone impatient. "I need to get out of here." They left the store, stepping into the cool afternoon air. Lisa tried to make conversation, but Eric's replies were curt and distracted. As they walked down the bustling street, her frustration grew. "Eric, you've been on your phone the whole time," Lisa said, her voice tinged with annoyance. "Can't you just focus on us for once?" Eric rolled his eyes. "You're always complaining, Lisa. It's getting old." Lisa stopped in her tracks, glaring at him. "Complaining? I just want you to care a little, to show some interest." Eric huffed and kept walking, not even slowing down. As Lisa hurried to catch up, he accidentally bumped into her, causing her to stumble. "Watch where you're going," he snapped, not even bothering to help her regain her balance. Lisa straightened up, her face flushing with embarrassment and anger. She stared at Eric, who was now several steps ahead, completely indifferent to her plight. In that moment, a memory of David flickered in her mind. His kind eyes, the way he had been so gentle and considerate, even when she had stormed out on him. David, who had always listened, who had cared deeply for his daughter, and had tried to make things work with her despite the challenges. She had dismissed him too quickly, blinded by superficial expectations. Lisa felt a wave of regret wash over her. How could she have been so shallow? She had been so quick to judge David for having a child, but now she saw how misguided she had been. Eric was a perfect example of the kind of man she had thought she wanted. Attractive, successful, but utterly lacking in empathy and genuine care. "Eric, I think we need to talk," Lisa said, trying to keep her voice steady. Eric sighed dramatically. "What now?" "This isn't working," she said firmly. "I need someone who actually cares about me, not just someone who's around when it's convenient." Eric laughed harshly. "Good luck finding that. Relationships take effort, Lisa, but all you do is whine." Lisa felt a sharp pain in her chest, but she stood her ground. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I do whine, but I also deserve someone who respects me and listens to me." Eric shrugged. "Whatever, your loss." He turned and walked away, leaving Lisa standing alone on the busy sidewalk. The city moved around her, people hurrying by, but she felt strangely at peace. For the first time, she saw her reflection clearly. Her mistakes, her superficiality, and the shallow judgments she had made. Lisa began to walk, her mind returning to David. She remembered the warmth in his voice when he talked about his daughter, the genuine smile he had when they were together. She had been foolish to let him go. David's workplace hummed with the usual office chatter and the steady clatter of keyboards. It was a typical mid-morning break, and David was seated at a small round table in the break room, sipping a cup of coffee. "David, you're a machine," said Mark, his colleague, plopping down into the chair opposite him. "Balancing work and raising a kid on your own? I don't know how you do it." David smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. Emma makes it all worth it. Mark nodded appreciatively. Still, man, it's impressive. You've got dedication written all over you. I can barely handle my dog, let alone a kid. David chuckled softly. Well, Emma's a bit more demanding than a dog, but she's also a lot more rewarding. Mark was about to respond when the door to the break room opened and Sarah walked in, carrying a couple of brown paper bags. Her presence seemed to light up the room, drawing glances from several of David's co-workers. "Hey, David," she called out, making her way over to their table. "Brought you some lunch. Thought you might need a break from the usual cafeteria food." David's smile widened, genuinely this time. "Sarah, you didn't have to do that, but I'm glad you did." Mark raised an eyebrow, grinning. "Looks like you've got more than just work and fatherhood keeping you busy, eh, David?" David shot him a look, but couldn't suppress his smile. "Just a friend being kind, Mark. You know, something you could learn a bit about." Sarah laughed as she set the bags down. "Nice to meet you, Mark. I've heard a lot about you." "All good things, I hope," Mark said, standing up. "I'll leave you two to your lunch. Don't work too hard, David." As Mark left, Sarah took his seat, pulling out containers of homemade food. "I made your favorite," she said, her tone casual but her eyes watching David closely. David's face lit up as he opened the containers, revealing a hearty serving of lasagna and a side of garlic bread. "Sarah, this looks amazing, thank you." Sarah shrugged, smiling. "It's nothing. I just thought you could use a little pick-me-up." They ate together in comfortable silence for a few moments, the usual buzz of the office fading into the background. The connection between them felt natural, easy. "So, how's Emma?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. David's expression softened. "She's good. She had a great time at show and tell yesterday, brought Mr. Whiskers and stole the show." Sarah laughed. "That sounds like Emma. Always full of surprises." David nodded, his smile tinged with a hint of sadness. "Yeah, she is. I just hope I'm doing enough for her. It's hard, you know, trying to be both mum and dad." Sarah reached across the table, placing a hand on his. "You're doing an amazing job, David. Emma's a lucky girl to have you." David looked down at their hands, a mix of emotions playing across his face. "Thanks, Sarah. That means a lot. It's just, sometimes I wonder if I'm enough." Sarah squeezed his hand gently before letting go. "You're more than enough, and it's okay to feel overwhelmed. You don't have to do it all alone." David met her gaze, appreciating the sincerity in her eyes. "I know, and I'm grateful for your support. It makes a big difference." They continued their meal, the conversation shifting to lighter topics, favorite books, funny stories about their kids, plans for the weekend. Each shared moment deepened their bond, weaving a tapestry of mutual understanding and respect. As lunch came to an end, Sarah began packing up the empty containers. "I should get going. Don't want to keep you from your work." David stood up, helping her gather the bags. "Thanks again, Sarah, for everything." She smiled warmly. "Anytime, David, and if you ever need anything, just let me know." As she walked out of the break room, David watched her go, a mix of gratitude and contemplation in his eyes. He returned to his desk, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and deadlines, but David's thoughts frequently drifted back to the conversation with Sarah. Her kindness and understanding were a balm to his weary soul, a reminder that even in the midst of his struggles, there was hope and support to be found. The city of Chicago bustled with life, its myriad of restaurants, parks, and cafes serving as the backdrop to many a story. Lisa had been part of this vibrant tapestry, her dating life a series of false starts that had left her more disillusioned with each passing evening. Lisa sat across from Tom, a well-dressed man with an air of confidence that bordered on arrogance. The restaurant was dimly lit, the murmur of conversations blending with the clinking of cutlery. "So, Lisa, what do you do for fun?" Tom asked, swirling his wine glass lazily. "I enjoy reading, exploring the city and trying out new recipes," Lisa replied, smiling politely. Tom nodded, but his eyes seemed to drift past her. "I'm into extreme sports. Last weekend I went skydiving. It was incredible. Ever tried it?" Lisa shook her head. "No, I haven't. Sounds exciting, though." "It's not for everyone," Tom said, his tone dismissive. "You should come watch me sometime. It's exhilarating." The rest of the date continued in a similar vein, Tom talking about his adventures, barely acknowledging Lisa's attempts at conversation. By the end of the night, she felt more like an audience member than a participant. A few days later, Lisa found herself in a quaint cafe with Jake, a charming man with a quick smile. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air as they settled into a corner booth. "So, Jake, what brought you to Chicago?" Lisa asked, genuinely curious. Jake leaned back, a cocky grin on his face. "Business opportunities, mainly. I run a couple of startups. It's a tough world, but someone's got to do it." "That sounds impressive," Lisa said, sipping her latte. "What kind of startups?" "Tech, mostly. We're disrupting the market," Jake replied, launching into a detailed explanation of his ventures. As the date progressed, Jake's enthusiasm for his work turned into a boastful monologue. Lisa listened, nodding occasionally, but she couldn't shake the feeling of disconnect. By the time they finished their coffee, she knew there wouldn't be a second date. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, Lisa met Brian at a city park. The setting was perfect. Children playing, dogs running, and the sound of laughter filling the air. They decided to take a walk, enjoying the beautiful weather. "So, Brian, tell me about yourself," Lisa said as they strolled along the path. Brian shrugged, looking around distractedly. "Not much to tell. Work in finance, like to hang out with friends. You?" Lisa shared a bit about her life, hoping to find common ground. But as the conversation continued, Brian's responses grew shorter and his attention seemed elsewhere. "You seem a bit distant," Lisa finally remarked, trying to keep her tone light. Brian sighed, checking his watch. "Yeah, sorry, just not really feeling it today." Lisa forced a smile. "It's okay. Maybe another time." That evening, Lisa found herself at a trendy bar with Sam, a man who seemed promising at first glance. The atmosphere was lively, with music playing and people chatting animatedly. "So, what do you think of this place?" Sam asked, raising his voice over the noise. "It's nice," Lisa replied, taking in the vibrant surroundings. Sam ordered drinks, and they settled into a booth. The conversation started well, but it quickly became clear that Sam had a fondness for alcohol. By the third drink, he was slurring his words, his stories growing increasingly incoherent. "You're really beautiful, Lisa," Sam said, leaning in too close. "We should do this again." Lisa leaned back, feeling uncomfortable. "Thanks, Sam, but I think I should get going." As she left the bar, Lisa couldn't help but feel a wave of frustration. Each date had started with promise, but ended in disappointment. She longed for something real, something genuine. Back in her apartment, Lisa reflected on the past few weeks. Her thoughts drifted to David and his honesty about his daughter, Emma. She had dismissed him too quickly, blinded by her own expectations. Now, she yearned for that sincerity, that openness she had once scorned. The neighborhood park in Chicago was bathed in the soft, golden light of late afternoon. The air was filled with the sounds of children playing, dogs barking, and the distant hum of traffic. Lisa, feeling the weight of the past few weeks, decided a walk in the park might clear her mind. She strolled along the path, lost in thought when she suddenly felt a light bump. "Oh, I'm sorry," she exclaimed, looking up to see David and a lively little girl, presumably Emma, chasing after a bright orange frisbee. David smiled, slightly out of breath. "No problem, Lisa. Long time no see." Lisa's heart skipped a beat. "David, hi. I didn't expect to see you here." Emma ran up, holding the frisbee triumphantly. "Dad, I got it," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. Then she noticed Lisa. "Who's this?" David put a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Emma, this is my friend Lisa. Lisa, this is my daughter, Emma." Lisa crouched down to Emma's level, her smile genuine. "Hi, Emma. Nice to meet you. You're really good at frisbee." Emma grinned. "Thanks. Dad and I play here a lot. Do you want to join us?" Lisa glanced at David, who nodded encouragingly. "Sure, I'd love to," she said, standing up. For the next hour, they played together, Emma's laughter echoing through the park. Lisa found herself genuinely enjoying the simple, unpretentious fun. David was patient with Emma, his love for her evident in every interaction. Watching them, Lisa felt a pang of regret for how she had treated David before. As they took a break sitting on a bench, Emma ran off to join some other kids. Lisa turned to David, taking a deep breath. "David, I owe you an apology. I was wrong to judge you so quickly before. Seeing you with Emma, I realize how unfair I was." David looked at her, his expression a mix of surprise and caution. "It's all right, Lisa. We all make mistakes." "No, it's not all right," Lisa insisted. "You were honest with me, and I didn't appreciate that. I've been on so many bad dates lately, and I've realized how rare honesty and kindness are." David nodded slowly. "I appreciate that, Lisa. Thank you for saying it." There was a moment of silence, filled with the distant sounds of the park. Lisa felt a sense of relief, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "I'd like to get to know you better, if that's okay. Maybe we could start over." David smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "I'd like that too, but let's take it slow for Emma's sake." "Of course," Lisa agreed. "Slow is good." Emma ran back, her face flushed with excitement. "Dad, can we get ice cream on the way home?" David laughed. "Sure, kiddo. How about you, Lisa? Want to join us?" Lisa hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "I'd love to." As they walked through the park, heading towards the ice cream stand, Lisa felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. She watched David and Emma, their bond strong and clear, and realized she had been searching for something that was right in front of her all along. They reached the ice cream stand, and Emma excitedly pointed out her favorite flavors. David and Lisa exchanged smiles, the ease between them growing. They talked about their lives, their hopes, and their fears, each conversation a step towards understanding and trust. By the time they finished their ice cream and began heading home, the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the park. Emma skipped ahead, her energy seemingly boundless, while David and Lisa walked side by side, their steps in sync. As they reached the entrance of the park, David turned to Lisa. "Thanks for spending the afternoon with us. It was nice." Lisa smiled, feeling genuinely happy. "Thank you for letting me. I had a great time." David nodded. "Let's do it again sometime." "Definitely," Lisa agreed. They said their goodbyes, and Lisa watched as David and Emma walked away, their silhouettes framed by the fading light. She felt a sense of calm and contentment, knowing that she had taken the first step towards something real and meaningful. The cozy family restaurant in Chicago was warmly lit, its rustic wooden tables and soft, ambient lighting creating an inviting atmosphere. The hum of conversations and the clinking of cutlery added to the restaurant's charm. Lisa had chosen this spot carefully, hoping it would be a comfortable and enjoyable evening for David and Emma. "Here we are," Lisa said as they entered the restaurant, smiling at David and Emma. "I hope you like this place. It's one of my favorites." David looked around appreciatively. "It's lovely, Lisa. Thanks for inviting us." Emma's eyes lit up as she spotted a corner booth with a view of the street outside. "Can we sit there, Dad?" David chuckled. "Sure, sweetheart. Let's go." They settled into the booth, and a friendly waiter soon appeared to take their orders. Emma eagerly flipped through the menu, her enthusiasm contagious. "Can I have the spaghetti and meatballs, Dad?" Emma asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "Of course, kiddo," David replied, smiling. "What about you, Lisa?" "I think I'll have the grilled salmon," Lisa said, glancing at David. "And you?" "I'll go with the steak," David decided, handing his menu to the waiter. As they waited for their food, the conversation flowed easily. Emma, ever the chatterbox, started talking about her day at school and the new art project she was working on. "Miss Thompson said I have a real talent for drawing," Emma said proudly, pulling out a small sketchbook from her backpack. "Look, I drew this yesterday." Lisa leaned in, genuinely interested. "Wow, Emma, that's amazing. You're really talented." Emma beamed, flipping through her sketches. "Do you like to draw, Miss Lisa?" "I do, actually," Lisa replied, her smile warm. "I used to draw a lot when I was your age. Maybe we could draw together sometime." Emma's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That would be so fun!" David watched the interaction with a growing sense of admiration. Lisa's genuine interest in Emma was evident, and it touched him deeply. He had seen many people feign interest in his daughter, but with Lisa, it was different. She was sincere. Their food arrived, and the conversation continued over the meal. They shared stories, laughed at Emma's antics, and enjoyed the warm, comforting atmosphere of the restaurant. Lisa found herself relaxing, her usual guarded demeanor giving way to genuine enjoyment. "So, Lisa," David began, looking at her thoughtfully, "what made you decide to invite us out tonight?" Lisa hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "I wanted to get to know you both better, and to show you that I'm serious about starting over. I've done a lot of thinking since we last talked, and I realized I judged you unfairly. I want to make it right." David nodded, appreciating her honesty. "I'm glad you did. It means a lot to me." Emma, oblivious to the deeper conversation, piped up. "Miss Lisa, do you have any pets?" Lisa laughed. "Not right now, but I used to have a cat named Whiskers. He was the best." Emma's eyes widened. "We have a guinea pig named Mr. Whiskers. Maybe they're related." They all laughed, the easy camaraderie growing stronger with each passing moment. Lisa marveled at how natural it felt to be with David and Emma, as if they had known each other for much longer. As they finished their meal, Emma yawned, her energy finally waning. "Dad, can we go home and read a story?" "Sure thing, sweetheart," David said, glancing at Lisa. "Ready to go?" Lisa nodded, though she felt a twinge of reluctance to end the evening. "Yes, but I had a wonderful time. Thank you both for joining me." David smiled warmly. "Thank you, Lisa. It was a great evening." They left the restaurant together, the night air cool and refreshing. Emma held her father's hand with one hand and Lisa's with the other, her small fingers a bridge between them. As they walked to their cars, David turned to Lisa. "I really appreciate what you're trying to do, Lisa. It means a lot to both of us." Lisa nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "I'm glad, David. I'm looking forward to more evenings like this." "Me too," David said softly. As she got into her car and drove home, Lisa couldn't help but smile, knowing that she was finally on the right path. The apartment was quiet, the soft hum of the city outside providing a gentle backdrop. Emma had fallen asleep after an eventful evening, her small form curled up under the covers. David and Lisa sat in the living room, the warmth of the table lamp casting a cozy glow over their faces. David poured 2 cups of tea, handing one to Lisa. "Thanks for staying, Lisa. It's nice to have someone to talk to after Emma's gone to bed." Lisa took the cup, her fingers brushing against his for a brief moment. "I'm glad to be here, David. It's been a while since I've felt this comfortable." David nodded, taking a sip of his tea. He watched her for a moment, the way she held herself, the slight furrow in her brow. "You seem like you have something on your mind." Lisa sighed, setting her cup down. "I do, actually. I've been thinking a lot about our conversation at the restaurant, and there's something I need to tell you." David leaned in, his expression attentive. "I'm listening." Lisa took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "Since we first met, I've been on so many dates, trying to find the right person. But they all ended up being disappointments. I realized I was looking for something superficial, something that looked good on the outside but didn't really matter." David nodded, encouraging her to continue. "I judged you so harshly because I was scared," Lisa admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Scared of getting involved with someone who had responsibilities, who couldn't put me first. But now, after seeing you with Emma, I realize that's exactly what I need. Someone who is responsible, who loves deeply and genuinely." David's eyes softened, and he reached out, covering her hand with his. "I understand, Lisa. Being a single parent isn't easy, and I've had my own share of fears and doubts." Lisa looked up, meeting his gaze. "What do you mean?" David sighed, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. "I worry every day about whether I'm doing enough for Emma, whether I'm giving her the life she deserves. It's hard to balance work, fatherhood, and everything else. Sometimes I feel like I'm falling short." Lisa squeezed his hand reassuringly. "David, you're an amazing father. Emma is lucky to have you. I see the way you care for her, the way you put her first. That's something to be proud of." David smiled, a mixture of gratitude and vulnerability in his eyes. "Thank you, Lisa. That means a lot coming from you." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the connection between them growing stronger. David's mind back to last week. David had met Sarah at the park, their usual spot where Emma and Jimmy played together. They sat on a bench, watching the kids with fond smiles. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" David began, his tone hesitant. Sarah turned to him, her eyes soft and understanding. "Of course, David. What's on your mind?" "I've been seeing Lisa more lately, and I think there might be something there. But I wanted to know more about her recent experiences." "You two are friends, right?" David asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Sarah's eyes glistened for a moment, a flicker of something unspoken. She took a deep breath, pushing her own feelings aside. "Yes, we're friends. Lisa's been through a lot lately. She's had her share of disappointments and heartaches, but she's a good person, David. She's realized what really matters." David nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I appreciate your honesty, Sarah. I just don't want to make any mistakes." Sarah placed a gentle hand on his arm, her voice steady. "David, you're a wonderful person. Lisa sees that now. Follow your heart and don't be afraid to take a chance." David smiled, grateful for her support. "Thank you, Sarah. I will." Sudden Lisa's voice brought him back to the moment. "David, I want to be there for you and Emma. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to try." David's heart swelled with emotion. He leaned in, closing the distance between them. "Lisa, I'd like that too. Let's take it one step at a time. Together." Their lips met in a gentle kiss, a promise of new beginnings and shared hopes. As they pulled away, they smiled at each other, the future suddenly looking a lot brighter. "Good night, Lisa," David whispered, his voice filled with warmth. "Good night, David," Lisa replied, her heart full of hope and anticipation. As she left the apartment, Lisa felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but with David and Emma by her side, she was ready to face it. The early morning sun bathed the park in a soft golden glow, casting long shadows and warming the cool air. The dew-kissed grass shimmered, and a gentle breeze rustled through the leaves of the old oak trees. David, Emma, and Lisa strolled along the winding path, their picnic basket swinging between David and Lisa. "This spot looks perfect," David said, nodding toward a sun-dappled clearing near the lake. Emma ran ahead, her laughter ringing out as she spread a colorful blanket on the ground. "Hurry up, you guys! I'm starving," David chuckled, setting the basket down and helping Lisa unpack. They laid out an array of treats: sandwiches, fresh fruit, and Emma's favorite chocolate chip cookies. The simplicity of the meal was balanced by the richness of their company. "Everything looks delicious," Lisa said, her eyes twinkling as she glanced at David. David smiled back, a warmth in his gaze. "Thanks, Lisa. I'm glad you're here with us." Emma, already munching on a sandwich, looked up and grinned. "Me too. Miss Lisa, you're the best." Lisa laughed, tousling Emma's hair. "And you're pretty amazing yourself, Emma." As they ate, they shared stories and laughter, the bond between them growing stronger with each moment. Emma's bright chatter filled the air, her joy infectious. Lisa found herself watching David more closely, appreciating the way he interacted with his daughter, the gentle guidance, the genuine affection. It was clear that Emma was his world, and Lisa admired that deeply. After they finished eating, Emma jumped up, grabbing the frisbee. "Dad, can we play?" "Of course, sweetheart," David said, getting to his feet. He turned to Lisa. "Want to join us?" "I'd love to," Lisa replied, standing up and stretching. They spent the next hour playing frisbee, the simple activity bringing out the childlike joy in all of them. Emma's laughter echoed through the park as she darted and jumped, her energy boundless. David and Lisa exchanged smiles, their connection deepening with each shared glance and playful interaction. As the morning wore on, they eventually settled back on the blanket, breathless and happy. Emma lay down, staring up at the sky, her eyes drooping with contentment. "I think someone's ready for a nap," David said softly, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's forehead. Emma mumbled something incoherent, already drifting off to sleep. David and Lisa sat quietly, watching the peaceful rise and fall of her chest. "This is nice," Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's been a long time since I've felt this content." David looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "I feel the same way. It's been a rough road, but moments like these make it all worth it." Lisa nodded, reaching out to take his hand. Thank you for letting me be a part of your lives, David. It means more to me than you know." David's fingers tightened around hers, a silent promise passing between them. "You're part of our family now, Lisa, and we're lucky to have you." They sat in companionable silence, watching as the sun climbed higher in the sky. The park began to fill with more people, but they remained in their little world, a bubble of tranquility amidst the growing bustle. As the morning turned to noon, David turned to Lisa, his eyes reflecting the hope and determination he felt. "Lisa, I want you to know that whatever comes next, I'm ready to face it with you. You've brought something special into our lives, and I don't want to lose that." Lisa's heart swelled with emotion, but she kept her voice steady. "I feel the same way, David. I'm here for you and Emma, no matter what." David smiled, the warmth of his expression matched by the sincerity in his eyes. "Then let's take this one step at a time. Together." Lisa nodded, her hand still firmly in his. Together. As they watched Emma sleep, their hands intertwined, the sun continued to rise, casting a new light on their path ahead. It was a beginning, not of perfection, but of promise, an understanding that life's challenges were easier to face with love and support. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the park and the quiet assurance of their bond, David and Lisa felt a profound sense of peace. They were ready to embark on this journey to build a future filled with hope, respect, and unwavering companionship.